69.
You know I can't count that high. You're messing me up. That's not fair.
I'm not counting. I'm just throwing out numbers. Kind of like when you do a PT test. I'm not even sure they count the push-ups. I think they just decide.
They probably do, but I just wanted to note, dear listener, that is not my dog barking this time. So it is not Elvis.
So it doesn't qualify for the drinking game?
Doesn't qualify for the drinking game.
Yeah, guilty as charged. We're dog sitting this week.
So, all right. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just three nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. So without further ado, we are going to let the one, the only Mr. Rick Gualtieri introduce himself. And I hope I didn't butcher your name too bad.
You know something? I probably have about 3 pronunciations myself, and that was definitely one of them. So
that's perfect. That's perfect. Well, we know we got Rick right. It's kind of hard to mess that up.
You'd be amazed.
Yeah, I should grab like some French pronunciation. No, it's riche.
I actually knew a soldier. FAG was his name, and everybody tried. All you could tell when the NCOs were being nice because they tried to put Fag, and he's like, no, it's just Fag, and he looks so sad.
I might actively like legally change my name if that was it. Like I might just go for, I don't know, Smith.
Well, then you could join the Brotherhood of Smith.
I could.
There are thousands.
They are legion. They are Bob. But we're not here to talk about Bob. We're here to talk about Rick. So Rick, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, guys, and mad respect for your service. My name is Rick Gualtieri, and I am primarily a horror comedy writer. I've been doing this for, about 10 years now, professionally. I have about 30 novels out there.
Just a few.
Yeah, just a few. I like, something. Once you hit about 20, 25, you just stop counting and just say a lot. But as I said, I am technically, I guess, multi-genre. Horror comedy is probably my big thing. I have a couple straight horror. I have a couple fantasy books out there. I have a couple risque stuff under a pen name because sometimes you just got to get raunchy and just get those words out there.
Dr. Chuck Tingle. Sorry.
Oh, I wish I was Chuck.
Yeah, JR is on a quest to find Chuck Tingle or convince people he is.
So well, first off, I have the KDP Rocket program, so I can see how well they sell and don't in the Amazon store, and they don't sell, and they're just so much of a gimmick that I do have a speculation that maybe somebody wrote an algorithm and an AI writes those.
They've had AIs write knitting patterns.
They've had AIs write poetry before, and news articles. So I mean, sometimes it's comical, but given the nature of those stories, it would work. So.
I love the fact that they're so short, so he can like just churn them out like one after the other. Like I write long crap. My stuff is all like 100,000 words plus, and that takes a while.
Yeah, but I mean, if they're not selling, like it just doesn't appear that they're selling. So if you're doing it just for the gimmick on the cover, like it just, I don't know. That's why I speculate maybe it's a robot.
Doing it as a fun hobby.
I mean, that's a lot of words to crank out for a hobby.
Dude, have you seen how hard I work for my hobbies?
True.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe it is just a fun hobby for somebody, and it's like a retired nun somewhere in Nebraska.
And here's the thing. I mean, something's working because we all know Chuck's name.
This is very true. All right. The next part of the introduction, dear listener, is how we found the guests. So we ran out of our buffer waiting for DragonCon to announce the nominees, because every year we do the interview of the nominees. So we tried to stay flexible right around this time of year. Doc can tell you why they ran late making that announcement. But because we were behind, I had to scramble to find a guest because we're recording this on Sunday and airing it on Monday, and we have no buffer. That'll be a fun couple weeks. So I reached out to John Hartness because he's a very nice guy, and I know he has Falstaff Publishing, and we haven't done his style of books very much. So it would be something new. And I said, hey, do you have anybody who can fill in a pinch? And I thought he would give me a new author who was hungry for press and be willing to be flexible because this was a last-minute thing. And he gave us Rick instead, who's written 35 books. So I guess you're not new. So I don't know. The rest is history. What about you, Doc?
Same way. I was going to just say we plumbed the depths of my Rolodex.
That too.
And shook it until something fell out. And I'm sure some of our listeners are old enough to know what a Rolodex is.
I remember.
I think I actually have like a legit one somewhere. I collect odd things, but like JR.
Ouch. You wound me, madam. You wound me.
So instead of a young, hungry writer, you got an old, fat one here. So
We don't.
Hey, that's a sign of success. In the Renaissance, it was a sign that it was an attractive quality because it meant that you were flush and able to care for yourself and others.
Yep. And
So-
here and these days it just means I'm too lazy to go down and use my weights.
At least you have them. I used to use my son as my weight. Now he's a little heavy for that. And he wiggles too much.
Yeah, that would do it. Wiggling, I mean.
Well, I mean, he already fell off the playground equipment at school, broke his arm, so we should be gentle to him. Apparently, he's breakable. I don't think he knew it until that moment, though.
I mean, but did he learn to fly?
No, he learned that he has to make better saving throws.
True.
Especially against gravity.
Yeah, that would do it.
So, now that we've covered how we've met this wonderful, illustrious author, religion, very tricky question here. And I am polytheistic, so we will be going through both religions. We have Star Wars, Stargate, or Battlestar Galactica.
Well, I'm probably gonna like date myself here, but I'm assuming you're not talking about the original Battlestar Galactica.
I love the original. You can
like
say the
both.
original. I'm not sure JR's watched it, but I
have watched both, you heathen.
I have even watched the 1982-84 version where they were on Earth.
Yeah.
I've even watched the Stargate.
I'm a completionist. I had to watch all of them.
Me too. I have watched the Stargate BSG crossover event known as Stargate Universe as well and loved it. So, yeah, how's that? Winning.
I mean, it's a little bit more Voyager, but okay.
Yeah. The Voyager Star Trek, and we don't like the Star Treks.
What's wrong with the Star Treks? I love the Star Treks.
It's too communistic, utopian future, and I just don't have that much faith in humanity.
But
you need to watch Deep Space Nine.
Is that the one with Cisco, the captain? With
the emissary. Yes.
Okay. Cece Akeke told me that one was worth watching, and I would change my tune on Star Trek if I watched it.
So good.
I love it so much.
Amazing. I love Dax.
My middle son's middle name is Avery after Avery Brooks. That's how much I love that.
I totally understand.
I know the only thing I know about Deep Space Nine, other than the captain, because he stands out in the field of Star Trek captains, is that he's the character who told off Jean-Luc Picard. So
yes, Dax is amazing. I can go on and on. I love Dax.
Go.
I wanted to be Dax for.
I tell you what, we will do, dear listener. We will do. We will watch the first couple episodes, and we will do a review panel as one of the things. I know it's dated, so don't worry about spoilers because it's your fault if you don't know. But we will do a review episode of Deep Space Nine. Awesome. And we'll break her heart to watch it again.
So on to the question. As much as probably half of the canon material is heretical, I got to go with Star Wars because it's kind of like the Catholic Church. There's many things about it that are distasteful. Everybody knows about it, and it's there in your face. Whereas like Stargate, once it's like kind of off the air, it's a little bit, out of mind.
To go with that analogy, it's the Catholic Church, and every major Christian denomination has been a rift or a break off of the Catholic Church.
Yeah. So. And Battlestar Galactica, I love the crap out of the new one. And the old one too, but the new one, that last episode, it's almost like it erased it from my memory. So yeah, gotta go with Star Wars.
The Stargate, or excuse me, the new BSG, like most of the time when they change ethnicity and gender just to check boxes, I don't really like it. I have no problem with those kind of characters, but when it feels like you're checking boxes, then it just feels cheap. When they did it with Battlestar Galactica with Starbuck, it actually made the connection to that character in the family, the Adama family, actually makes sense because you add that romantic element to the deceased brother. I know that's probably a spoiler too, people. I'm sorry. It was 1970 something. All right. Like that actually made that pop a little bit more for me. So I actually liked some of those changes they did with the new iteration.
I mean, the original Starbuck was basically just like, hey, I'm a good-looking guy and I fly spaceships. Cara Thrace was, she was just all around badass.
She had a lot more depth to her character than the original Starbuck, to be honest.
100%.
So I didn't really like the original Starbuck as much.
The funny picture is when the actor for the 2 Starbucks were drinking coffee with a cigar at an actual Starbucks restaurant or coffee shop that's been floating around the internet for years. I always laugh. But now you get to ask the next religion question and see if he gets to stay.
Princess Bride, Pan's Labyrinth, or Jumanji?
I pretty much love anything Guillermo del Toro, but I got to go with Princess Bride because it is a movie that 100% has everything. I mean,
storm in the castle.
It's funny. It has action. It has great characters. There is really nothing that movie does wrong.
It has seeped so far into the cultural pop psyche. I still remember watching it with my child the first time and him going, "You all say these things all the time. You sound like the movie." And I'm the movie sounds like you. And I'm like, no, I'm not that funny. I'm cheating. I'm copying the movie.
The funny scene was when they took the sword fight with the 2 main characters and they changed them digitally with lightsabers and they had them doing their duel with the noises that some of the spoofs that came off of that. Hilarious.
So, as we've covered, we do both sci-fi and fantasy, but which was your first love? Was it sci-fi, fantasy, or for you, horror?
Oh, well, you know something? We've already taken a bit of a dump on Star Trek, and unfortunately, that was kind of my first love. So I'll say
my
sci-fi.
First love was not that great either.
I don't know when you get loved by William Shatner, it really does leave an impression. Horror is a very close second because I have enjoyed scaring the crap out of myself for as long as possible. Something I have passed on to my kids because I when they were first born, I enjoyed scaring the crap out of them too.
Well, see, my dad used to have me watch horror movies. We'd build a fort, we'd watch horror movies, and then he'd tickle me at the funny parts. So I have a really odd fear reaction, and I will just start suddenly laughing.
Oh, that's
Did you guys
cool.
It's a little messed up when you're in high school.
Yeah, I used to just get yelled at. Again, my wife got home, and I'd be there with my youngest, and he'd be like 1.5, and there'd be people getting their guts ripped out on screen. I'd be like, "Well, I was just flipping channels, and I just put this on."
No. See, we were in Saudi Arabia. There was no just flipping channels and it magically appeared. It was Saturday morning in lieu of Saturday morning cartoons.
Did you guys read Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark series that they did back when Scholastic Books used to be a thing? You remember those where they'd come to your school and they'd have those book fairs and they sold those? There's a black and white cover. I still remember it. It's a picture of a skeleton smoking like a cigar or pipe or something.
Yeah, I remember what you're talking about. They did a Reading Rainbow one that was horror that scared the shit out of me for a long time.
Take a look. It's in a book.
Dude, I did not want to pick up a book at night for a while.
I liked that. They should bring Reading Rainbow back. But yeah, did you read those, Rick, when you were a kid too? Since you like horror?
I'll probably say I either had the best parents or the most awful parents because when I started reading, I kind of skipped all the kids' horror because I never really found it that scary, and I pretty much remember my first horror book was a Stephen King novel.
Oh, okay. I read that in the 4th or 5th grade. The It. But I didn't find it that scary. Mostly I read it because my teacher said it was too old for me. So I was just thumbing my nose at authority.
Well,
I can dig that.
My first, I would say probably the scariest book I've ever read was not actually supposed to be as a horror novel. Which was Larry Niven's Fallen Angels.
Why was that scary?
It is set in a future world where the world is turning cold. People have kind of rejected the possibility that sci-fi, fantasy, science is okay, but fantasy has nothing additive. So cons are banned. You can't find fantasy books, and the world is turning frozen. And I hate the cold with a passion. I had cold weather injuries in basic training, and I never forgave Mother Nature for them, I guess. I don't know. I was also born in a desert in the South and lived in the South. I hate the cold and snow and ice. And when Georgia is cold and icy, as it is in this book, that's a problem.
So I actually believe the road.
There's no cons. It's a world without any conventions, no fantasy authors. Fantasy's been banned. Wait, it was 2020. Sorry, bad joke.
Yeah, I think the road to hell is paved with snow. So like I'm totally with you against the
I'm pretty
evil
sure it is.
weather. But all right. This is
November
not
baby here.
Okay.
This is
So-
not the Cisca therapy hour, so let's move on.
Our fans like me better than you. Be nice.
This is probably true.
It helps
So
that I'm a girl.
We probably we asked him what his first memory was, but what is it about speculative fiction writ large that you enjoy?
I guess
Scaring
because
people?
it's, well, scaring the crap out of people is awesome. I would say it's because it can go anywhere. I mean, there's really no rules to it, and I kind of like that because just genre fiction. And don't get me wrong, I love genre fiction. I write genre fiction, but one of the downsides of any genre fiction, whether it's like books, movies, TV, is it's so friggin' predictable most of the time, so formulaic. And you know what I like? I like to be surprised. I like when a story just takes a left turn and I'm like, holy crap, I did not see that coming, because it doesn't happen often. And speculative fiction for me is kind of like there's not a lot of rules. So because of that, you have a better chance of seeing that left turn. And that's just a joy to me to run into something and be like, wow, I did not see where that was going.
Those are some of my absolute favorite books. I will agree with that completely.
So how did your love of speculative fiction transition into you writing stories in this wild world?
Well, I mean, as I said, I write genre fiction, but I also try to throw those tropes on their head, go take left turns. And I think that's what it is, and that doesn't always make people happy. Don't get me wrong. Some people, they want, they're that happy ending, or they want you to follow the connect the dots or so. And I like to throw curveballs in there. Sometimes I will kill the dog. Sometimes I will kill a major character off screen just to show you that, hey, life goes on when the main character isn't there. I like throwing those curveballs. So I'd say that probably gives me the thing that every so often I just like to throw something to the readers, which makes them just throw back, one, I didn't see that coming, and two, damn you to hell.
So you get lots of hate mail, I take it?
Not, something, considering I write horror comedy, I kind of set myself up with the hate mail.
I think, though, the fans kind of expect that.
Yes.
It's like a George R. Martin fan. They expect that any character they love will die. If they don't expect it, then why have they read past book 2?
Yeah. The final book in one of my series, the epilogue is actually called the hate mail inducing epilogue. So it's kind of like, yes, I'm going to take you off here. Bring it.
Okay. So many authors let their real life experiences influence the kind of stories they tell. So were there any formative moments that shaped you as a storyteller?
I've been a gamer for since high school, and yeah, a lot of my D&D misadventures have made it into my books. I mean, outside of D&D, it's really just the things I do with my friends, the stupid things we say to each other. Sometimes people will just say something, just whether it's an insult or not, and it'll just stick with me. I'll be like, I gotta use that. I mean, life in a sense is like speculative fiction, because you never know what's happening next, and so if it's something that sticks with me, then it's probably something that's worth sharing.
So do you have a preferred character class that you play?
I'm usually bigger on martial characters than spellcasters. I think partially because, well, I'm lazy, and fighter or barbarian types tend to be easier. They don't have to have like 15 pages of character sheet, which is always
Now, does
nice.
that preference turn into your books, carry over in your writing?
Yes, because like so many people say in urban fantasy, their main characters are spellcasters, witches, wizards, and stuff. My main characters tend to be the people who have to get up close and punch you in the face.
I was expecting you to say like necromancer or something, given that you write horror.
Yeah.
I play to have fun, and which tends to sometimes piss off my real life playing buddies. But I like being a necromancer is fun, but I find that sometimes just taking a normal character class and just kind of messing around with them, that's that's far more fun than just coming with somebody who kind of like, their template is automatically darker. So
Fair enough. All right, Doc, you get to ask your favorite questions.
Oh, wait. Yes, the writing ones. Transitioning away from writing. Have you had any fan art or have any of your characters yet?
Fan art or cosplay for those that missed the glitch?
Oh, sorry. I'm glitchy today, apparently.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten some fan art, and I've actually I haven't seen it. Actually, I've gotten photos from it. I haven't actually seen it in person, but I have had a few people. Probably my biggest selling series is called the Tome of Bill, and it's about a nerdy vampire who's just a complete jackass. People don't like him. The other vampires are too cool for him. And I have had a few people kind of like, do the, okay, gonna do the nerdy look, pocket protector, fangs in the mouth thing. And that's just the one. I mean, it's kind of an easy cosplay, I think, but two, it's just awesome when somebody chooses to do that and say, I could have gone as anybody. I could have gone as Deadpool to this thing, but I chose your character.
I think that is a very big compliment always. So even if it's a simple one, it's still a huge compliment. Has anybody asked you for your autograph outside of a book signing or a convention?
I'm coming off of one from just about a week and a half ago.
Really?
So I went to Authors and Dragons Con. Authors and Dragons is a podcast I'm part of. So we were throwing our own convention, and
you
myself
guys looked like you had too much fun.
Oh, we did have too much fun.
I'm totally jealous. Next year.
I'm holding you to that. But anyway, myself and Drew Hayes, one of the other members, we had gone out for breakfast one morning, and I'm sitting there. I'm wearing one of my Bill the Vampire T-shirts, and somebody comes up and says, "Oh, Toma Bill," and I thought they were there for the con. So I immediately just started giving them a little attitude. I was like, "Yeah, okay, you're here for A&D Con. That's cool. What's A&D Con?" And then he's like, "Have you read the series?" I'm like, yeah. Well, I talked to the author once on Facebook, and suddenly I'm like, oh God, I got to ramp down being a dick. This guy is actually for real. And like, I was like, okay, let's back up here. I kind of am the author. And it was just the most random. It was just hilarious that it was a block away from where we were doing this convention. I just randomly ran into like somebody who just recognized the T-shirt, and it was just the most awesome experience. And I feel bad because, like I said, I was automatically just like goofing with the guy, thinking, oh yeah, okay, you're here for the good, you're here to like see us and stuff. But yeah, that was just great.
That's awesome.
But that's sort of who you are, being the goofball. So if you had been straight laced and be like, oh, see here, chip cheerio, they might not think it was really you, right? So like, he got the full experience. So I would bet he's happy.
Oh, it's great. And it's also great because a couple of years back, my wife and I, we took our kids down to like Busch Gardens at Kings Dominion in Virginia. And she has just like done her hair, like, it was like multi-hued color. And I was wearing my Bill shirts. And she was like, something, more people are going to like mention my hair than your shirts. And I was like, it's a bet. And man, she just completely, utterly wrecked me on that one.
Yeah.
So a small bit of a revenge, but she wasn't there with her hair. So that might have worked against me anyway.
So what would be your funniest fan interaction since you've started writing?
Okay, so at the first A&D Con, which was in 2020, I guess 18.
20 something?
Yeah. Or was it 2019? And also a bit at this last one, just seeing people like, staring across the room at like, at us, and then realizing that they were too nervous to come up and say hi. That just blew my mind. It was like, hey, come over and hang with us. And then you like kind of see them turn white, and it's like, did we say something wrong? And then you realize that like that they're nervous to see somebody like me, which I'm like, I can't imagine. So it's awesome, but it's also just weird.
They were probably terrified of turning into a blathering idiot. Which I use that phrase because I met one of my favorite authors, and I looked at my friend. She's like, "Go talk to them," and I'm like, "No, I'll turn into a blathering idiot. I know."
You guys are listening to me now. I'm already a blathering idiot. That's pretty much my that's pretty much my normal state of being.
I totally understand. I'm the same way. But can you mentioned earlier you have a rather deep back catalog. Mm-hmm. Can you give us like your highlight reel of either your series name, or because are they mostly series, or are they just independent worlds title?
So I kind of do both, but I tend to favor more series. So my
Okay.
biggest series is called The Tome of Bill, and as I
Hmm.
said, it's about a you know as I call him, a dateless dork who winds up in the wrong place at the wrong time, gets turned into a vampire, and he just kind of winds up surviving by the skin of his teeth. And this you probably can't see because of the camera, but I'm wearing a T-shirt right now for Bill of the Dead. Bill of the Dead is actually the sequel series. So Tome of Bill is a full series; it's complete. Bill of the Dead picks up 5 years after that, so obviously in the same world.
Hmm.
Those are probably my two biggest series. If we step outside that world to elsewhere, I have a series called The Hybrid of High Moon, which is about this girl whose mother is a witch and father's a werewolf. And unfortunately, witches and werewolves in these worlds kind of hate each other. So it doesn't really work out well for her. And I just finished a trilogy. It's Tales of the Crypto Hunter. So this is pure horror. Steps away from fantasy, more towards the world of, I guess, creature rampages, more scientific. But the books in there are Bigfoot Hunters, which name suggests Bigfoot, Devil Hunters, which is the team going up against the Jersey Devil, and then the final book is Kraken Hunters, which is kind of a deep sea Meg/Jaws type adventure.
Oh, great. So if I ever read that, I definitely don't want to go on a boat.
I had somebody recently read Bigfoot Hunters before they went camping, and they were like, "Yeah, now I don't think I'm going to go outside my tent." And I was like, that's the best compliment you could pay me.
So you write what would, I don't know, urban horror, urban fantasy sort of genre where
Well, I
basically,
think most horror is urban, unless it's set period.
well, I mean, with the vampire part and the werewolf.
Okay.
So you're writing those sort of fantastical creatures in the modern world. So do you address the idea of how they would stay secret? So that's the one thing. Like I used to watch the Highlander series where it was the Immortals, right? Mm-hmm. And the one thing I never understood is how in the modern age they managed to keep their identity secret because eventually, you get found out, right? Your fingerprints mm-hmm. match. We've been doing fingerprints since the early 90s, at least. So how do you address that in your world where, they in theory would want to stay hidden, but modern technology is going to make that almost impossible?
Well, that's kind of a big theme in the Tome of Bill books. And it just turns out that it really comes down to the vampire nation is powerful enough to have their fingers in, everyday government and such. So the higher ups of human society, they know about this stuff, but it doesn't filter down. It's kind of like top secret sort of things. Spoiler for those of you reading the series, but one of the things it turns out is the entire government of Switzerland is actually run by vampires.
Nice.
The world makes sense now.
A little bit different in my Hybrid of High Moon series. That's more that takes place more in Pennsylvania, and the idea is a lot of the stuff that happens is more on the smaller scale, so it's more in a rural setting. So it's a little easier for that to stay hidden because they kind of shy away from outsiders. Anybody who kind of steps into the middle of their conflict, they get their minds blanked or horribly murdered. Whatever happens first.
Whatever floats their boat.
Yeah. And I mean that Crypto Hunter one I mentioned. That's kind of actually the gist of the story is that there's a team behind the scenes. They work for the Department of Agriculture. They jokingly call themselves the Department of Cryptid Containment. And their job is a lot of these cryptids are they're prehistoric survivors. They're highly endangered. And well, the government realizes that the best way to kind of keep them from going extinct is to just deny their existence. So this team is essentially sent sent in to clean up whenever, say, mankind and angry Sasquatches cross paths and there's a bloodbath. They're essentially cleaners, if you will.
Interesting. All right. And so while all of that sounds fascinating, today we're here to talk about The Legend of Jimmy Headshot, one of your Shingles series of novels. So where did the premise for this universe come from? How did you come up with the idea for the series? Was it psychedelics?
Too much time with Harkness?
Ouija board, too much time with John Harkness?
A little bit of all the above. I mean, this is probably the brainchild of Robert Bevan, who's also on the Authors and Dragons podcast. But it really came down to that a lot of us grew up reading Goosebumps. And Shingles is kind of like our way of saying, well, what if the kids who grew up reading Goosebumps are now adults, but they want something a little more visceral, a little more awful? These people have grown up they've grown up with horror. So now they kind of, have grown up to just laugh at things that most people are like, oh my God, you're a terrible person. So we're kind of like shingles is what you, or I'm sorry, goosebumps is what you get when you're a kid, but when you're an adult, you get shingles. So that's kind of where that came up with is, and shingles is kind of our version of awful speculative fiction, where we take tropes and we just run wild with them. So, for example, one of my stories is called Gary's Children, and it's kind of a traditional horror story, except, a person goes into like, a strange pawn shop, winds up with a cursed item, except in this case, he winds up with a cursed fleshlight.
Oh,
so like I said, it kind of takes those stories and just puts a little bit of an awful twist on them. But it's all done in good fun. It's all meant to be like, like humorous, like, just quick reads where you can like sit back and just like have a good laugh. But they're definitely not kid friendly.
All right. Well, this is the part of the introduction. This is part of the interview where we talk about your glorious cover, and I really like this one. So, where did you get the inspiration for this glorious piece of artwork?
All right. So we lucked out with Authors Dragons early on in that one of our listeners, his name is John Luther Davis, and he was a tattoo artist, and he did really good work, and he started sending us fan art, and it was really good. So we started talking to this guy and being like, well, hey, can we maybe commission some stuff from you? And when we started doing the Shingles series, we reached out to him and said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? Because we're kind of looking for a Goosebumps feel to these. And he fortunately said yes. So he's been doing these. And typically when I work with him, I come to him with an idea. I'm like, here's what the story's about. Here's what I'm looking for. And we kind of go back and forth a little bit. And it's kind of winds up being kind of a meld of like, what I'm thinking versus like, his artistic ability. And I mean, it's kind of a really good partnership. Yeah. I mean, he came up with this. It was basically this arrogant SOB of a kid in his battle gear with his main weapon from the book sitting atop a pile of corpses.
Okay. So what would the 30-second elevator pitch for this series, or for this book specifically, which is the Legend of Jimmy Headshot? What would his 30-second elevator pitch be?
The Walking Dead meets Stand By Me. So basically, it is the story of a 12-year-old gamer kid who's a little bit of a sociopath, and when the end of the world comes, everybody's in a panic except for him because he's been waiting for it to happen.
So this is the perfect part to say, well, because we don't normally do this one. I read a lot of blurbs in prepping for the show. It's one of the things I spend a lot of time doing to get these questions and as we designed it. And it's not often that a blurb, even when they're trying to be funny, I can see the setup. It's probably the curse of doing this for fun and profit. But when I read your blurb, I actually laughed. I snorted some coffee out of my nose. So by the way, that'll be $1.50 for that coffee from Dunkin' Donuts that you owe me back. But could you read that to the show or to the listeners?
I'll send you my PayPal address list.
I'm
later.
pretty sure it cleaned out your sinuses, though.
Yeah.
All right, let me see if I can put on my announcer voice. Jimmy Perkins was your average 12-year-old sociopath. He played sports, despised his little sister, and eagerly awaited the day when society finally crashed and burned. Now, the zombie apocalypse is upon us. The dead have risen from their graves to feed upon the flesh of the living, and Jimmy couldn't be happier about it. So much for school chores and mowing the lawn. He's here to kick ass and take names, and woe be it to anyone who dares tell him he's up past his bedtime.
I approve. This is what made me laugh. I had to mute it so I didn't laugh again. Doc, the next question is yours. Try to top that. Huh?
JR, I top you all the time. That just sounded wrong. Okay, anyways.
I wasn't going to say anything, so we'll just move on and pretend that never happened. I'm sure I can edit
secondary
that out.
character, shush JR. What secondary characters really stand out to you in this book that you want to talk to us about?
Okay, so the main character obviously is this kid who calls himself Jimmy Headshot. It's his gamer ID. I would say the secondary character is his sister, Darlene. She's a 7-year-old kid. He despises her. He can't stand her. He keeps dreaming about killing her. Basically, he just keeps her alive because he's like, one day I'll need a distraction, and she'll be the perfect meat shield.
I can relate to that. Anyone with siblings can relate to that.
And the fun thing about this is when you're in Jimmy's head, he talks like he's like this 30-year-old, hitman or so. But when he interacts with Darlene, their discourse just becomes like brother and sister, where he's like talking to his parents, giving them all this crap. And then his sister's like, this is kind of gross. Yeah, you're gross.
All right. So we're going to have to do this a little bit out of order because
no. Just it's my questions. I know what I'm doing. Sort of.
All right.
Maybe. So, but talking about the story, and one of the questions I did kind of gloss over is you talked about the series is special because you pull out and you kind of play with the tropes. But what tropes did you use in your Tropalicious story this time?
Okay, so I've always wanted to write a zombie story. I think anybody who's ever written horror wants to do a zombie story once in a while, but I wanted to make it my own. And I mean, a lot of people have done, we've all seen the people who are too stupid to live in the zombie apocalypse. I think we've also seen that trope turned on its head where it's like, hey, I'm a geek and I know all and I know all about it. Now the zombie apocalypse is here. And I was like, okay, who do I want my main character to be? And I was thinking about, some of the kids you see on Xbox Live who who just crush it, at Call of Duty or whatever. And then they just completely trash talk you. And I was like, what about a kid like this? A kid who just spends all his time online gaming, And then I was like, okay, how do I make him more awful though? And then I was like, yeah, let's make this kid a bit of a psycho. Somebody who's just looking forward to the carnage to come. So it's really kind of so in some ways, he is self-aware about the zombie genre, so he talks about it. But a lot of the things he talks about sometimes wind up kind of getting turned on their head. Like at one point, he's like, I'm curious what caused the zombie apocalypse, but that's the crap for the scientists and the eggheads and the nerds to worry about. I'm just here to kick ass and take names. And then later on, he figures out actually what caused the apocalypse, and he's like, well, damn, I wasn't expecting that. So that was kind of fun. It was really just taking a zombie apocalypse story and trying to put my own unique spin on it, trying to make it my own.
They are.
All right, so let's be honest. It's a little bit of therapy hour, JR and Cisca, but is Jimmy you? Is there anything you want to tell us about?
No, Jimmy is actually one of those. He's one of those interesting characters in that, when we write, we always want to have our characters have some redeeming quality that that draws people to them.
Yeah.
Jimmy is meant to be entirely awful. And I've gotten that in some of my reviews where people are like, I don't like this kid. You're not supposed to like him. He's actually supposed to be a terrible person. So yeah, I would say I like to think I'm not a terrible person. I mean, I might be when I'm playing an online game, but yeah, Jimmy is just meant to be. He's meant to be essentially every parent's nightmare.
Okay, so we've talked about.
Sounds very accurate.
So we've talked about the main character and the sort of secondary character and the sister, but are there any bad guys that he has to fight without giving us spoilers?
Oh, sure. I mean, obviously there's the undead, and the undead come in multiple different flavors in this. Not to give spoilers, but not all of them are human. And there's also the human element, and he even mentions that one of the things he's been on the lookout for is that eventually I'm going to run into people, and those people are going to be terrible because they've been living throughout the apocalypse, and it's going to be a case of kill or be killed. So yes, he does run into some awful individuals, but in some ways I can't even call Jimmy an anti-hero. He's kind of more. It's almost like a story kind of centered on a villain with very few redeeming values.
Okay, so you did a lot of horrible things through your horror novel, and I guess this would be true of every horror author, but you did a lot of awful things to Jimmy and crew. So how do you think you would fare if you met him in a dark alley? Is he going to eat your lunch, or do you have like the reach because you're an adult and you're going to clobber him?
I have the reach as an adult, but like I'm a parent, so I'd probably pull my punches if if it's a kid and underestimate him. And Jimmy fights dirty. He's not afraid to he's not afraid to use his environment. Like he's the type who'd be like oh mister, you hurt me, and then break a bottle and like rub your face in the broken glass. So I would be a little afraid to meet Jimmy because Jimmy doesn't have any F's to give.
All right,
Fair.
that's fair.
Angry chihuahuas will one day kill people, I swear.
Yes. So finally, what can you tell us about the Shingles universe? In many of the series, the worlds where the stories are told are as much of a character as the protagonist and antagonist. So what can we expect from the expansive world of the Shingles universe?
We have a couple of places that locations and such that appear in like across the novels and such. But in similar to the Goosebumps series, each novel is standalone. There's 5 of us writing these novels, and we kind of each put our spin on it. But we do kind of occasionally dip into the other stories. I know one of Steve Weatherall's stories, which is about I won't say an evil mannequin, more about a racist mannequin. And I went into there and I was like, hey, you mind if I kind of create his sister for another story? So it's a shared world, but it's a very loosely shared world in that I think each of us has destroyed this world in our own way. But we do have some common elements where they show up and it's like, why do people keep winding up at this sex shop, for example?
I'm going to blame Harkness for that.
Oddly enough, that is a Robert Bevan thing. He did the first book in the series, so he kind of set the stage for the awful, and the rest of us kind of fell in line with it.
Oh,
okay.
But John has certainly contributed. Don't let him off the hook.
No, never.
The Legend of Jimmy Headshot is clearly part of a series. I know because it says so on Amazon. There are currently 36 books out in this series. So is the story of the Shingles universe done? Will be more from these this setting and this series?
Well, there's only 36. There's actually about more like 46 books in the series because after Amazon's system every so often stops. Well, they changed the way they do series recently.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be that if multiple authors were writing in a series, you just would put the series name in the title and it would work. But their new tool does not work across multiple authors unless we write it and do it. And well, sometimes we get lazy. So there's actually more like 46 books. The series is continuing. It's still ongoing. We release currently one a month.
Wow.
Yeah. And we've actually added some other authors to it as we've expanded our podcast. We now have, I believe, instead of 5, we have 7 authors contributing to Shingles.
Oh, wow.
So that is a lot.
Yeah. So what's next is, I would just say, keep an eye out. They release on the 1st of each month. We had one at the beginning of August. We'll have another at the beginning of September. I think August was written by Ari Carr, who's I actually work with as a co-author. Sweet. Yes, she is. She is a wonderful person, and actually one of my Toma Bill spinoffs we co-write together.
Aw, she's really awesome. I need to read her stuff, but I have talked with her a bunch, and she's awesome. So,
all right, Jack, it's on you.
So, I don't know if this will be a really interesting answer. Given that every literary universe has its own internally consistent rules of science, technology, and/or magic, what can we expect from the books? And is it going to be consistent throughout? Or is it just more like the Tales from the Crypt, where everything's a little different by that specific episode?
It is 100% Tales from the Crypt.
Okay.
As I said, it's a very loose world. Each of us, I think, has destroyed that world a couple times in different ways. So depending on where you're going to hit, like Jimmy Headshot, it's more like sci-fi zombies than supernatural zombies, whereas other stories have more of a supernatural aspect. So the consistency is that we're trying to be entertaining. All of these, though, can be considered standalone. So for example, if you wanted to start at book 40, you can very well start at book 40, and it's not going to hurt anything because these are all standalone stories.
Okay.
Okay. Are they in audio?
Yes. So the Shingles stories are relatively short. They're all about 100 pages each. So we released the audio as collections. So I think we're up to 6 audio collections so far. Each of them has 6 books in them. So that's so you get about maybe 12 hours of audio per collection. And yeah, at this point, I think we are up to about 36, and I think we're working on audio 7 now.
Oh wow.
I think I'm not in the next one, so I haven't really paid as much attention as I should. But yeah, typically we grab 6, we bundle them up, we send them out there, and that's what they are in audio. And we have, and considering what these stories are about, we have some tremendous talent who are doing the voiceovers. We have Cassandra Miles and Cal Wembley, and these are both award-winning narrators. And the fact that we have them reading these Shingles stories, which once again, I mentioned before, like a story about a haunted sex toy, is just the most hilarious thing on the planet.
Well, it is probably also just that they're very different, which may have been their thing that attracted them. Because I've talked to audio narrators, and they're like, I can only do it. One of them said his favorite story is when an author actually emailed them and said, "What do you think?" And he goes, "Do any of these have accents? Because I wouldn't want accents for them." And he was like, "Sure." And he's like, "Okay." So I got to make, and he goes, "I got to make up all the accents. It was really fun."
Well, yeah, something. I mean, I spent like 20 years in corporate America, and if I learned any lessons, is that one of those, when you're working with a subject matter expert, you kind of respect them as a subject matter expert. If I'm working with a narrator who's done a lot of books, and they're like, something, I know what you're going for here, but why don't we try something a little bit different? I mean, if it's going to break the story, that's one thing, but if it's something new and I think about it, I'm like, oh, they actually have a good point. I want to hear that feedback.
Yeah, well, the author in question also said that he ended up adding accents into his descriptors now in books. So it changed how he wrote some.
Oh, yeah.
But we've talked about how you've created different creatures for your universes. How do you go about doing that? Are they inspired by your nightmares, nature, just you really want it to do X because you think it would be funny for the story?
A little bit of the above. I mean, I pay attention to my nightmares. I actually kind of, my nightmares, I don't really find scary so much as I wake up. I'm like, that's kind of cool, which probably doesn't say anything good about me. But
are they really nightmares then?
Yeah, that's true.
Mean, for you, for me, they might be a nightmare.
Yeah, I will say the whole concept of like, if you die in your dream, you die in real life is complete BS, because I have died in my dreams a whole lot of times.
That is fair.
Yeah, I would say a little bit of everything. I mean, one of my books, it's the 3rd book in the Tome of Bill. It's called The Morning Woods. And the book is essentially built around this one joke that I just found funny. It's like 100,000 words that really can be condensed to, this guy really found the concept of vampires versus Sasquatch to be hilarious.
So we've talked a bunch about this book, even though it's not the first in the Shingles series, which we normally focus on the first in a series, because you're doing something really cool and special with this book. Care to tell us about it?
Well, yeah. So a couple months back, we got lucky in that we met up. Well, we reached out to and kind of established a relationship with the director behind the movie Carousel. It's a low budget cult movie, but it is utterly hilarious, bloody, all sorts of, it's everything like I would want in a movie. And we got to talking with him, and we were joking, saying, "Well, hey,
cool.
what if we came
we're talking movie?
Yes.
Are we talking movie or TV series?
Oh, we are talking movie. So we've come up with a script that combines 5 of the Shingles books into, we mentioned before, kind of a Tales from the Crypt connected anthology, which
Nice.
is kind of a core group telling these stories. And we've launched an Indiegogo to fund it. So it's kind of a dream come true. We have a guy who who knows how to direct movies. He's not just a fly by night somebody who said, "Hey, I have a camcorder." This guy knows
Awesome.
what he's doing, and it kind of gives us that dream of authordom, which is seeing something we've written come to life on the big screen.
That is really awesome. So I have only ever backed an Indiegogo, and it was a comic. So can you give us an idea of what backers can expect in the way of prizes? Is that what they get? Prizes, rewards,
Rewards.
cookies?
I'd say rewards. So I mean, at the lower tiers, we're giving away digital copies of a movie, DVDs, Blu-ray, mentions in the crits, such like that. Then as you move a little further up, that's where we get kind of the fun stuff. We have like personalized messages from characters in the movie, personalized stuff from the director, and then we get into and you can also be an extra or a producer of the movie.
Oh, cool.
My favorite is you can get some of the special props that we're building for the movie. There's a scene.
I just had an image of special props with quotation marks around it.
100%, because there is a scene where the characters have to basically barricade themselves and defend themselves in a sex shop, and kind of do makeshift weapons with whatever's at hand. So you can have one of those makeshift weapon props and signed by the director, by the way, as one of the tiers of the movie of supporting this movie.
I'm just picturing someone going out with a phallic object in their hand, beating the zombies, screaming, "The power of Christ compels you."
Oh no, I'm picturing somebody going up to John Hartness and going, "Here, the director signed it, but now I want you to sign it," in the middle of a panel at Dragon Con or something.
And you know something, I know John will probably like hand me a Sharpie.
Oh no, John will probably already have the Sharpie knowing him. That man has no shame.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can't say I would do any different. Somebody who backs this, hell yeah. I mean, if somebody comes up and, "Hey, I backed your movie. Can you
I know
sign?"
for a fact I saw a picture of a baby getting autographed at the Authors and Dragons Con.
That was kind of me. I didn't actually write on the baby.
I would have.
You just signed on the onesie. It's okay. Wait, did you actually write anything on the baby?
No.
No, but that was a great, very evil smile. I was very impressed.
Oh, trust me. I wanted to put a smile on my face that basically said, "Yes, I'm doing this and I'm enjoying it."
It did.
But you know something? I've seen enough Chosen One movies to know that doing that to a baby, that baby will grow up to be an adult and they will hunt me down.
Fair enough.
I don't want to be somebody. So I don't want to be somebody's like Darth Vader when I'm like 80 years old.
So what is the chance that this actually gets made? I know a lot of times Cisca has a lot of experience with this, being a Pern fan. Things will get optioned, rights will get bought, nothing ever happens with it. Well,
I mean, if we hit we're funding it as an independent production. So if we hit our funding, it will happen. I have to say, Steve Radzinski, who's the director, as I said, he's directed several other movies. When we came to him with this script, I'll be perfectly honest, I thought he was going to come back to us and kind of just humor us. And he came back with a whole game plan. And he was like, "Hey, here's what I want. Let's talk about the cast. Let's talk about the budget. Let's talk about location." He had all of this stuff mapped out. Like he was ready to go tomorrow. And it was just like honestly, he made us believe that this can happen. So I will say
that is a huge telling difference. Like JR and I were talking one time about the Pern, when Pern got optioned again by Warner Brothers a few years ago. I'm like, "It's not happening." And he goes, "Why do you say that?" And I'm like, "Because the person that they put in charge of the script has 0 screen credits." And so, I mean, not to say it could have. I'm a huge cynic of it at times, but I'm also the person. In some ways, I'd rather see it not done than done wrong.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, but I mean, options by themselves don't really mean anything. They're basically here, pay us some money and you can shop it around. But
they're really exciting.
Yes.
So I'm really happy to hear that it sounds like you guys are really going to be going forward. And I do think also now it's a lot easier when you do something like Indiegogo and Kickstarter, because several of those movies have gone on. So to being actually done, like I've been following the ElfQuest one.
So what is your distribution plan with this then?
Okay, well, our distribution plan, once again, we're working with Steve because he's an independent filmmaker. He's done this. So he's been giving us, like, tips on, okay, here are the movie festivals you want to go to. Here are the online streaming platforms you want to go at. A movie like this, I mean, outside of, like, probably small screenings, maybe at conventions or, like, or festivals.
Oh, I could see this going really well at Dragon Con.
That would be kind of cool. I can't say either you're going to go really well or considering the content of the movie, or really, really badly, but either way would be kind of amusing to watch.
I think I know. It would be good.
But this one I can see going pretty much direct to streaming. That's pretty much our distribution plan. We just want to get it in front of as many eyeballs as possible. Just we want people to go in there with the sense of, okay, this is horror, but we want people to come out of it laugh. We want people to come out of it a little bit horrified, but we also want people to laugh. I mean, this is meant for a specific audience. This is meant for people who will, like, go through, like, Amazon Prime Video at 2 a.m. and just be able to be like, this looks really sketchy, but I'm kind of interested anyway. That's kind of our crowd.
Are you aiming for better than B-rated movie? Because bear in mind, for the longest time as a kid, I thought B-rated was where it was at, because my mom.
I agree.
My mom's top 5 favorite movies are all of the Tremor movies.
I'm gonna say
that says a lot about what I grew up with.
We're 100% going for B movie with this, because the thing is, I love B movies. There's only one sin. There's only one sin a B movie can make, and that's to be boring and
take itself too seriously.
Yeah. No, take it too seriously. I mean, yeah, that could be bad, but once again, be dull. I mean, I've watched the movies before where I'm like, this should be good, but nothing happens. And I can say this, some people might turn this off in disgust pretty early on. Some people might walk away and be like, these are awful people. But something? If all goes according to the script, there is no way this movie is going to be boring.
Fair. So do you know who you want to cast yet? I mean, obviously some of the extras are going to be people that back it, but have you gotten to the point where you're, like, talking to actual actors? Are you going to try to get names? Or are you going to go with new, fresh faces? Or
okay, so if one of our stretch goals, if we go we're aiming for about we have two tiers. 45,000 will get the movie made. 60,000 we'll get a more expensive version of the movie made. And then I believe we have a stretch goal at 70,000, where that's where we will reach out to the horror community and try to get a name actor into the script. Other than that, we're going to be working from a pool of, like, independent, like, journeymen and women actors who, if you're in the horror scene, you will probably recognize them, but, like, name wise, they're always going to be like that guy or that person.
So what are the dates of this Indiegogo? Because I know, like, Kickstarter, they only have so long. How about for Indiegogos? Because I know we do try to keep this evergreen, but I really want those who are listening and are excited to know when they should be going and backing this.
Well, the Indiegogo is live now, and it should be live for another almost 2 months.
Good.
If I can throw out the URL.
Yeah, no, we will put it in the show notes.
Sure.
Believe me, that was actually the next question we were going to ask. How do we find you and this campaign?
Well, it is indiegogo.com/projects/shingles-the-movie.
Nice.
And as usual, show notes, people, if you didn't write that down. But I bet if you searched Shingles, you would find it on the Indiegogo.
So, and feel free, or I may ping you and remind you also to share it in our Facebook group for our listeners so that they can go to it, because we are all about seeing people succeed.
Yeah.
So when is this Indiegogo close?
2 months from now?
Yeah, about 2 months from now. So August, I guess, in October. It'll close probably mid-ish October.
Okay.
And then if it winds up being funded, we will be filming this in 2022.
Nice.
Neat.
Nice. Did you have any more questions about the Indiegogo? I don't know enough about movie making and etc. at all to ask a lot of informed, sciencey, smart sounding questions. So is there anything you want to ask, Doc?
I don't know. I don't pay attention. I have a friend who has an MFA in film, and she'll start talking, and I'm like, okay, yeah, pass the potato chips.
Yeah, I will say this. I mean, all those of us who wrote the script, myself, Drew Hayes, John Hartness, Robert Bevan, Steve Weatherall, we're novelists, so we know how to do that part. But we are primarily, putting the movie itself in Steve Radzinski's hands, because this is his wheelhouse. So we're not trying to get in there and I guess direct over his shoulder and such.
Well, John has a background in theater, so he knows a little bit about looking at somebody and going, yeah, they can act. Whereas I'm like, I just smile a lot. But yeah, so that sounds really awesome.
We're really excited for it. I mean, if it happens, that like I said, it's one of those bucket list dream come true items, because if you write a book, your dream is to kind of one, I mean, the writer progression is one, I dream of writing a book. Now it's like, okay, I wrote a book. Now I want people to read it. Now people have read it. Now I dream of it being like a movie or a TV show.
I've actually talked with some authors who say they write with that in mind. I'm like, that's one way of doing it. But one said that it was really great because it forced him to put pictures of what he was looking at in front of him, so that he had very vivid descriptions.
No, yeah. I can understand that. I mean, I'm a movie watcher myself, so especially action scenes, I plot out action scenes like it's a movie in my head. That's kind of how I want to see it. I don't really necessarily go for realism. I want the cool explosions in the background, the people flying through the air, the awesome shots of of finishing moves and such.
Finish him. All right. Sorry. Played one too many arcade games. Wait, are arcades still a thing?
Yes, they are.
Okay, good.
Time to get out of your hidey hole, JR.
I just check in. I don't know.
You love that foxhole.
Yeah, well, somebody's got to keep you safe. I'll keep the zombies at bay, everyone. But clearly not in Shingles Universe, because I'll just get eaten in a sex shop. Wait, that sounded bad. Phrasing.
Better you than me.
Yeah, same.
All right, so clearly this interview is winding down. So before we wrap this up, was there anything about the Legend of Jimmy Headshot that we didn't ask that you want to tell us before we move on?
Well, as I said, it's available both in ebook, audio, and it is available in print as well. It is part of a large, massive series. So this is one of those, once you dive into shingles, or once you get infected by shingles, the rabbit hole is pretty deep. There is a lot to keep you going there. There's also a lot of diversity in the books with regards to as I said, multiple different authors write them, so you get different style and such. So it's not a series that's that's easy to get bored of. And if you find one story you don't like, well, there's plenty of others that touch upon other subjects. It's a whole smorgasbord of awful.
He says with a smile.
Well, awful in a good way. I mean, okay, so I was one of my Facebook group, I was mentioning before the concept of humor and the thing that we all want to be politically correct, I guess, out there right now, but the truth is a lot of us just laugh at terrible things when it's just ourselves. Yep, 100%. I mean, when we were 12-year-old, what was the thing 12-year-olds did? We shared dead baby jokes, which is just the most awful thing in the world.
Wait,
but
you're only supposed to do that when you're 12?
The Army
or the Marine.
Allegedly.
Yeah. I mean, I seem to remember certain cadences about napalm sticking to kids.
I was the person who hated running cadence, so I learned all the forbidden cadences. You only need to know a couple lines of them before they yell at you and don't let you yell cadences ever again.
Yeah, this is true. Especially, I imagine that's more so true in this modern climate, and we'll leave it at that. So
actually, I think it's more because I was a female saying it that really freaked out the older NCOs.
Fair. So, quick question. You mentioned that you have paperback copies available. I imagine that's on the Amazons as well. But if somebody wanted signed copies, how would that go?
Well, you could either find me at a convention, because I am willing to sign anything, as you saw with that baby picture, or my website, rickgualtieri.com. I have a section on there for autographed copies. I try to price them fairly. I don't charge for my autograph because I don't think anybody should do that. But I just charge the Amazon price and shipping, and I am more than happy to get those out there to people.
So speaking of this signing the baby picture that we've talked about, I didn't have to share. So if somebody wanted to see that, it is August 15th. It'll be airing on the 16th. If they sign up for your newsletter before September 1st, could you share that in your September newsletter?
I could.
So if you want to see the picture, people, which is
he says the guy who's like, I'm not sure I'm supposed to be sharing that.
I think it's hilarious. So I think you should share it. And if people want to see it, they just got to sign up for your newsletter. It's a win-win all around.
I know the person whose baby it is, so I can most certainly ask if,
I didn't
if
think
they
about
mind.
that angle. Yeah. Very good point.
Yeah, I will say
you don't really see the baby's face, but it's still, always a nice idea.
See, this is why they have the grown-ups in the room.
I have special needs kids, so I occasionally have to put on my adult hat, and that's kind of one of the things of online adults are kind of fair game, but kids, you want to make sure you cover your bases.
Absolutely understand.
Yeah, no, I understand. I posted that my son broke his arm second day of school, and I had a lot of people go, "Wait, you have a kid?" And I'm like, "Yes." How old's your kid? And I'm like, "Don't worry about it. Why don't you ever talk about him? Because it's not your business."
Yeah.
Like I love people who know me through fandom. I love people that listen to us on the podcast, but our kids didn't sign up to be part of the show.
100%. Like I have videos on in my reader group of myself, my wife, and my oldest who's 21. Trying foods that some of our readers have sent. But he's 21, and he's choosing to do that, and it winds up being funny because, it's kind of funny watching, watch my own kid tell me to go F myself on camera.
See, my kid would get hung up by his toes.
But yeah, below a certain age, I kind of want to reach a certain age with them where it's like, okay, you're going to be online and you consent to it, as opposed to me making that choice for you.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. So
we still see his face. You can just edit out the baby. It's a great face.
Yeah. Or you could just slap a picture of Cisca's face over the baby's face, and then all right. So Rick,
it's funny today.
I will find you. Can you tell listeners how they can find you? And all of that will be in the show notes, by the way. So check it out, including the Indiegogo campaign. Check that out too. And if you like horror, you liked Goosebumps, you want to catch a case of shingles, back the Indiegogo. Wow. Look what you made me say, Rick.
Well, as I tell people, I am Rick Gualtieri everywhere. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, rickgualtieri.com. Since most people can't or have trouble spelling that, heck, sometimes I misspell it. I tell people if you get stuck, just do a search for either Bill the Vampire or Tome of Bill, because both of those will kind of lead you to me as well.
His website, which is so awesomely named that nobody can forget it, is poptartmanifesto.com. You will never forget that one. You can't misspell it. There you go. You will find him.
Yes, that is my blog, and for years I've been trying to keep that blog. I've been trying to find focus for that blog of hey, I should do certain types, and instead it's just like a random spewing of whatever is at the top of my head at the moment.
Hey, it gets it out of your head. And particularly some authors have that problem. If they don't get it out of their head, I'm
not getting anything else done.
All right. And you can find us on our website at anchor.fm / nope. Let me try it again. Website is anchor.fm/blasters tech and tech blades, anchor.fm/blasters and blades, Twitter at SF_fantasy_show, Sierra Foxtrot _fantasy_show. You can email us at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to send all of your hate mail to Cisca at blastersandblades.com. I promise she loves to hear you tell her everything she did wrong. It will go perfectly well for you. You can find us on
I'm
Facebook.
always nice.
Sure.
Sometimes I just bless their heart.
Sure. So you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Blasters and Blades podcast. Again, /groups/Blasters and Blades podcast, where we host all of the shenanigans. We will even post the Indiegogo campaign. You can support the show at buymeacoffee.com /author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that is for the podcast. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com /author J.R. Handley. We will keep the intrepid co-hosts Doc Cisca and Nick Garber duly intoxicated. They will drink until their livers surrender.
Never quit. Nobody likes a quitter.
Nobody likes a quitter. And if I have to hit the button, so they don't want you hitting the red buttons drunk, apparently. I don't know what that's about. But if you all want to support the show on a more reoccurring basis, you can support us over on anchor.fm /blasters tech and tech blades for as little as 99 cents a month or as much as $10. And if you want to do more, I'm sure we could make that happen. But we appreciate those that do support us. It helps keep the light on and keep the fees manageable. So bring us home, Doc.
Thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For the absentee, overworked Nick Garber, who should be drawing me a comic book right now, J.R. Handley, I am Cisca. This was a Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time. We'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, picking our J.R., things that go boo, and seeing what other crazy stuff I end up saying.
But the first and foremost, we have to remember the most important rule. Pineapple does not belong